Alright, we have another Final Fantasy VII Rebirth interview with Naoki Hamaguchi, and I gotta say, Square Enix, please let this man rest. Let him get some sleep. He's been on this really big press tour for months now, taking Rebirth everywhere, letting people play it, getting to talk to everyone. I feel like at this point in time, everybody and their mom has spoken to Naoki Hamaguchi, so the guy's gotta be exhausted at this point in time, but these interviews just keep hitting. And in today's video, we're gonna talk a little bit about some of the Final Fantasy VII spin-off games and how those characters will be appearing in Rebirth. Also, how the live-action Beauty and the Beast inspired 7 Remake and Rebirth story, which, don't worry, it's not that big of a deal like some people are making it out to be. And also, those pesky whispers. Are they going to be making a return in Rebirth? We'll find out in today's article. So if any of that sounds cool to you, feel free to click the like button and subscribe if you'd like to stick around. It's always appreciated. So this first interview comes to us from techraptor.net, and in it they got to sit down with Naoki Hamaguchi and ask him about some characters from the spin-off games that could show up in Rebirth. Hamaguchi goes on to say, without again providing any major spoilers, besides Zack, who was not in the original Final Fantasy VII, but will be making an appearance here, there's going to be other characters from Final Fantasy VII spin-offs that will be appearing in Rebirth as well. Now, that might be a translation error, or maybe Hamaguchi misspoke, or maybe the writer just messed up and wrote this here, but Zack was in the original Final Fantasy VII. He wasn't a part of the main storyline in the main party, but he did appear in the flashbacks. So as far as spin-off characters go, that's really exciting, and I'm pretty certain that these spin-off people will probably show up in Zack's portion of the game, because there's a lot of Crisis Core characters that could be pretty important to helping out Zack in his timeline, trying to figure out what's going on, and eventually fight Sephiroth. And the first one that comes to mind is Cissnei. She was incredibly important to Zack. She had the opportunity to turn him into Shinra, but she didn't. She let him and Cloud go and escape, and then she took off and did her own thing. So I very much would like to know, what is she doing now? Where has she been? Has she been keeping tabs on Zack? And now that he's alive in his own timeline, he can reunite with her, and maybe she can join his party. And that's another big question I have. Is Zack going to have his own party, or is it going to be a Crisis Core situation where we're playing through the Zack stuff and it's just Zack? I am hoping he gets a party. It'd be really cool to see him team up with Cissnei. Maybe Kunsel decides to leave the Shinra building and step away from his desk for once and get out in the field and do some fighting. Or maybe we could see this alternate version of Avalanche. Maybe Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse didn't perish at the fight on the Sector 7 plates. Maybe they're still alive and kicking. Who knows? So I very much want to know who's going to show up and if they're going to join Zack. Now, other characters that could show up, I would not be shocked if Weiss makes a return. So we did get to fight Weiss in 7 Remake in the VR battle, but he's being powered by Hojo, and Hojo isn't just going to give up and do a one and done with Weiss. I wouldn't be shocked if they find a way to take Weiss out of the VR simulator and put him into the real world, and maybe we encounter him in the story. I don't know how they would wrap him into the story, but it could be very interesting, so he might be someone saved for the Zack stuff in that game. I would also really love to see them revisit characters like Angeal in Genesis, because this time around, the writing for 7 Remake's trilogy has been so much better than what we got in Crisis Core. So taking those characters like Angeal and Genesis, who were very simple and one-dimensional, and adding some depth to them, hiring maybe some different voice actors and giving them some new life, could be very interesting. And you can have sections where maybe Zack's reminiscing on his time with Angeal. Really build up Angeal, add some more depth to his character, and make him mean more to the story and to Zack. So there's a lot of opportunities there for second chances for these characters. Up next, Hamaguchi goes on to talk about the story approach for the remake trilogy and why they decided to do some things differently. He goes on to say, the original storyline is evergreen. It stands the test of time. If we do follow the script of the original title and do things shot by shot exactly the same, that sort of lacks in newness on its own. And so fans of the original title may not be satisfied with that. So we wanted to kind of keep that newness and sense of wonder and thinking, what will happen next? So we've talked about this very briefly in previous videos, but there are sections of fans out there that do not like what's going on with Remake. They very much wanted that one-to-one recreation of the original game, but with better graphics, new music, voice acting, but still keep the story and the command-based, turn-based elements the exact same. So when Remake came out, people finished it and they realized this isn't just a straight-up remake, it's actually kind of a quasi-sequel, alternate timeline kind of thing. It did rub people the wrong way. Personally, I love it. I love being able to see a different approach to a story that I already know. Because if I play a game and I see, okay, well, I know scenario A and I know how we're going to get all the way to scenario E, but now scenario B is different. Scenario C is a little bit different. Scenario D is a little bit different. All of these different twists and turns add this new excitement and freshness to the story. So now I'm questioning what's going on with the story. Are they going to change something and make it completely different or leave it the same? That to me is incredibly exciting. And if I want to play the original 7, I can plug in my PlayStation and play it, or I can play it a variety of different ways, or experience it through the Ever Crisis mobile game. So there's tons of different ways to absorb the story of 7, but being able to change things up and keep it fresh, I think is really great. And speaking of story approach, we're going to jump over to geek culture and talk a little bit how the Beauty and the Beast movie inspired Hamaguchi and how they could tell the story of the remake trilogy. So he goes on to say, when I watched the movie Beauty and the Beast live action, I noticed there weren't many big changes to the story, but there were differences in the way that it was told. I realized there are some things that could only be expressed in that way because it's live action. Now, some people read this and they saw the headline and they go, oh no, live action Disney has infiltrated Final Fantasy and it's inspired the game, the series is ruined now. But all Hamaguchi is basically saying is that you can take a story that people know and you can retell it, but change some things here and there. You can change the way you tell the story. Much like I gave in that example previously, you know how to get from scenario A to E, but now scenarios B, C, D, and so on and so forth are a little bit different. Maybe they're in different orders, and the way that they approach those story elements are going to be a little bit different now. So don't freak out. Disney isn't suddenly coming in and changing the story of Final Fantasy. They just realized that they can take that same story and just kind of tell it in a slightly different way. And with the advancements in technology, they can now show things in greater detail, or maybe show things that they weren't able to on the PlayStation 1 because they were limited by that hardware. Or in the case of Beauty and the Beast, the live action version has advantages over the animation, and the animation has advantages over the live action when it comes to showing certain things. And last but not least, let's talk about those pesky whispers. Could they potentially show back up in Rebirth? Hamaguchi goes on to say, in the previous game, we brought in the whispers. So for the player, they can expect to see if there are any further developments for the whispers. Not only will they appear, Zack is showing up as well. So it's like, what will happen to Zack? This is the exciting point. And I very much want to know if the whispers are going to show up. And I think at this point, it's not a question of if, it's more of a question of when, because when you beat Sephiroth at the end of 7 Remake, you can see him absorb the whispers. They go into his body and he controls them. He uses them to attack the party. And we get that really epic final cutscene of everyone coming together, fighting their own individual whisper until Cloud can go and challenge Sephiroth. So I fully expect to see them come back in Rebirth, maybe not in a consistent format like they were in Remake, but maybe in bigger key moments of the story. Sephiroth could again return, manipulate those whispers to try and change destiny, because there are so many things now that can happen and be different. And if we're again going with the idea that Sephiroth is the OG Final Fantasy VII Sephiroth, post-Advent Children, who's found a way to manipulate timelines and whatnot and change history, then yeah, he can do that now with the Whispers and use them to change story events and maybe go from trying to keep the canon the same like they did in Remake, but now Sephiroth's using them to alter the canon to his favor, which could be another new twist that's very exciting and adds to the character of Sephiroth, because now when he shows up, it's not just, oh, Sephiroth's here, he's a threat, it's Sephiroth and the Whispers are here, which could be a really cool element. And the last thing I do want to talk about, again, this is a massive spoiler, so again, if you've not played the original Final Fantasy VII, you can end the video here so I don't spoil anything, but there is something very interesting that I am curious about, and it does involve the Forgotten Capital. So again, the last warning, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you've been warned, big spoiler. I'm questioning if Aerith will not die, and I don't think she will die because, again, if this is post-Advent Children Sephiroth, he knows what he needs to do and what he should do. And when you really think about it, in the OG Final Fantasy VII, Sephiroth's downfall starts when he kills Aerith. By killing Aerith, she's able to become one with the planet, summon the life stream to help Holy fight off Sephiroth meteor and Sephiroth loses. So maybe by keeping her alive this time, that doesn't play out. And Sephiroth might know that. And he can now use the Whisperers and all of this knowledge to his advantage to alter things. So there's so much that can go on. I want to be very careful moving forward about what I cover with Rebirth and how much I cover, because there's so many crazy theories out there that I'm coming up with and other people are coming up with. And I still want to go into Rebirth with this sense of wonder and excitement for the story and the gameplay and the different locations we're going to visit. So I do want to be very careful about what I cover moving forward. With that being said, I'm on a tangent here. That's the video. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you guys think of these specific topics? Are there certain characters from the Final Fantasy VII spin-off games that you want to see return in Rebirth? Anyone from Crisis Core, maybe someone from Dirge of Cerberus? Leave those in the comments down below. And what do you think about the Whispers? Do you think they're going to show up again in Rebirth now that Sephiroth is technically manipulating them? I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.